right, we are coming in on episode 9. It's hard to believe entering the 5th week of these. Coming to you live from the pen and paper strength app garage with racks behind me. The green egg is in front of me. We're trying to bring some strong content to the viewers each week, and we got another special guest this week, of course, to help the cause and push it forward. So today we got Big Joe Connolly in the house from ASU. I've known Joe for quite a while. He's been a head strength coach at a couple places before ASU. I know South Carolina and UMass, and he's been in the industry a while. He's been under strength coaches like Joe Ken, and just a guy you kind of get to know through things you do out there. And I would definitely say my time with a company when I was working with a company called Sornex, you just get grounded in with a lot of strength coaches out there and get to know a lot of people. And Joe has been one of those guys. And if you think about this as, Joe is he's a competitor. He's competition to me. He's not only in the same conference, but we're in the same division. But this is the type of guy that we can put our, egos and pride aside and jump on this mission and share some great stuff and make this fun and hopefully help a lot of people out. So episode 9, we got Joe Connolly here, and I'm sure he's got some great stuff. And as usual, we're excited. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Double A. And real quick, I want to touch on a couple things like what you just said. Just a little bit about. I don't know if you remember when we first met. I had heard about you for years, obviously through the business. And, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was 2015 when we officially met, and it was at Sornex's Christmas party.
Yeah.
And, I had just gotten let go at South Carolina, and, Bert introduced us, and I just remember your kind of selflessness, because we sat down for 45 minutes to an hour and just, had a couple cold beverages and kind of talked through some stuff, man. And I'll never forget that, because you were there to help, and you were there to listen. And, I had never been in a position like that before, and I didn't know kind of what to do or how to act. And you were there to help, and you were there as a resource and a friend. And talking about competition, I remember this year or last year when I said, "Hey man, I'm gonna find you on the 50 pregame, and I'm gonna say hello," because that's I don't do that normally, but for somebody like you that's a friend, the outcome of the game, it's not as important to me as this kind of interaction and relationship. And I can't say that about a lot of people, but you're somebody that I feel about like that. So just kind of know that. And I think this profession gets the waters get muddied with a lot of BS and a lot of egos and a lot of branding and a lot of all this other stuff that really doesn't matter. And the thing that I love about you is it's about the relationship with the athletes, and that's something you taught me in 2015. I didn't, because trust me, I was the same way when I first got in this profession. And I thought I had this thing locked down. I thought I knew what I was doing, and that's not always the case. You get humbled real fast in this world, and you were always a resource for that. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thanks for having me on. We're going to talk about a couple things. This is pretty informal, but we're going to talk about ASU's training system, how we organize our training on a daily, and then also shameless plug. We'll talk a little bit about our training system called FPAS. I've been working on this book for, I guess, 4 years now, really, and I'm not. I have a co-author, Peter Nelson. I'm not a writer. I'm a sets and reps guy and I'm a practical guy, but, I had to reach out to some friends in the business, had to reach out to my man in the Bayou, Kurt Hester, and figure out how the heck he was putting out these books, and, went through a couple different, publishers to figure out who was interested and not. And so I think probably within the next month or so, we'll have it out on Amazon. So I'm going to share my screen here now. Um, I got a couple things. Let's do this one first. So real quick. There we go. All right. So we'll talk about how we organize training at ASU. And I want to preface this by saying one of my beliefs is that the athlete dictates the program. And what I mean by that is it's not my program forced down their throat. It's what I see with my eyes that they need that's incorporated into the program. Within certain parameters, like they're not going to say, hey, I want to squat on Tuesday. No, it's going to be within our philosophy, but the athlete and the time of year and the training age and all these other variables dictate the program. So we'll kind of jump into it here. So obviously training age is hugely important for us. We don't train 18-year-olds the same way we train 22 or 23 or 24-year-olds. It's just what I believe. It's what I learned over the course of time by making mistakes in strength and conditioning. And what I saw was that if your training program is the same for 4 years, the first year, you're going to see a lot of improvements with the athlete. Second year, you're going to see some improvements, but not as much. Third year, the athlete might get a little improvement or stay the same. And the fourth year, the athlete might get worse. And our bodies are smart, man. They understand the physiological demands. They understand how to adapt. That's why we're a superior race, because we've adapted over the course of years to turn into this, to turn into what we are today. We can adapt to heat. We can adapt to cold. We can adapt to different training environments very quickly. So I learned that over the years. So we train our athletes a little bit different depending on their training age. And we'll get into that here. So physical development differences. You have biological age and you have chronological age. I know people that are into periodization like me and are periodization geeks, or they understand this principle and this premise, but the number, how old you are. I'm about to be 38. My chronological age might be different than that. I'm not really sure. I haven't got my telomeres looked at, but we know that for especially a young athlete, puberty plays a big role into this. So hormones, where they are in their maturation cycle as far as development is concerned, those are kind of some differences that we look at. And whether it be 18 or 22 or 23, it's different. So here's some of the things we look at. This graph, I took from one of my old assistants, Angelo James. We created it together when he was with me at South Carolina, but the philosophy is still the same. It remains the same, and we'll tweak it as we go, but it's created this way because the fundamental development is the foundation for the top of the pyramid. If the fundamental development and functional development isn't there, then the top of the pyramid will never be as high as it could be. You look at the pyramids in Egypt, they have to be really broad at the base in order to be as high as they are. And the broader that base, the higher the top can be. So that's part of our philosophy when an athlete comes in the building. Now you can use all sorts of ways to do that. And we do, like, for example, posture, mobility, motor efficiency, and body awareness. All those can be done with a bar in your hand. It doesn't have to be in a quadruped position with a hip circle on. We're not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is we teach things slow and steady, because as any good pen and paper strength app follower knows, the best food is slow cooked. It's slow cooked, man. And I'm using this COVID to master my craft in the barbecue world. Uh, just like my man Double A. So
Hey, I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of strength coaches improve their cooking skills in the last 2 months. And I've always kind of felt coaching and cooking is very similar, and how you can manage more ingredients and more pots and pans and things going on in the oven, the skillet top of the grill, all those things at the same time, I think is very similar into the coaching world. How many athletes you can manage, how many racks and things you can coach all at the same time it's very, very scary how related it is.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you, man. It's just like life, the more things you can manage and juggle at the same time, the better off you're going to be. And as a head strength coach, you better be ready to juggle because there's going to be a lot of things thrown your way. So physical development, all these different parameters. I'm not going to read them. You can see it. And then obviously athletic development. The top of the pyramid is what we do. So some different blocks we utilize, and the age at which the typical athlete is in each one of these blocks. Block 0, stole straight from Joe Ken. He is the best programmer I've ever seen and I've ever been around. Whether you agree with the tier system or not, the methods of periodization that he uses, like Prilipin and relevant intensity and velocity-based training, however you cook it, however the ingredients look like, the end result's going to be pretty good. So I stole a lot of that from him. I stole this block system from him. We've added to it over the years. We have a SEAL block, which is sophomores and junior college athletes. We have our Delta block, and that's where we sprinkle in a small amount of specificity, but not much, because ultimately my belief is in the weight room, it's general. It's not specific. You're not going to see us punch in a lot of things, in the weight room. You're going to see us improving physiological qualities like hypertrophy, strength, and power, and all the variations of those, and allowing those improvements to be developed by the position coach in a specific form. So that's kind of our goal. And again, outside the box, front 7, and then quarterback is seasonal for us. The closer we are to football, the more we move away from certain movements with the quarterback. So developmental group, just a couple quick things. They've never been in a collegiate training system. They don't know our program. So there's a lot of things they need to learn. And this is what we focus on. That's our base. Our foundation is always technique. We teach things in pieces before we give them the whole thing. And, I'm a believer in Olympic lifts. We utilize every Olympic lift and every variation of them. We jerk, we do split jerks, we do push jerks. We go in front, we go behind the neck. We do snatch from the hang and the floor. We do cleans from the floor, from the hang. We catch in the power position. We catch in the conventional full position. So we utilize all those different things. I've even done split cleans before. It's all a driver for the physiological adaptation we want to get. And depending on the block, what the specificity is we want to sprinkle in. Again, there's nothing but unknowns with these athletes, so we need to screen them. I don't use a specific screen. My screen is putting a bar in their hand, watching them move, and then fixing the biggest issue I see. So if an athlete has trouble with a hip hinge, we're going to dial that hip hinge in with things like RDLs. And if we have to regress from there to get them in the right position, we will, but we'll ultimately progress right back to where we were. I was, 10, 15 years ago, I was neck deep in the FMS. I was trying to figure it out, man, because it was trendy and everybody was using it. And what I figured out was, yeah, there's some good things to it, but ultimately there's a lot of wasted time, and you can get a lot of the same things done just watching an athlete move and being diligent with your cueing and fixing what's wrong before it becomes a real problem. Next block is our seal block. Excuse me. Here's some different methods that which we use. So kind of some of the different things we touched on. Relative strength. So a lot of what we're doing right now, if our athletes don't have it, chin-ups, push-ups, lunging, hips, hip hinging, body weight squats. We utilize FPAS, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Isometrics, tempos, all the different exercises that you can think of. And then CTB just means come to balance. So a lot of deceleration. Seal block, basic linear periodization. You can get a lot longer with this block with a younger athlete than you can with maybe an older athlete. I can't anymore train heavy for maybe more than 4 weeks in a row before I need to drop down and then go back up. And I've seen that with, fifth year seniors and 6-year seniors. I even had a 7th year football player at UMass. So he was like 24 and a half years old when he graduated. So just being able to manage all those different training ages over time. Different things are incorporated in there. True plyometrics, jumping and landing. Dynamic effort might be incorporated in that. I'm not saying it is. It's dependent on what I see, but all things that we have used in the past. And then our Delta group, which is mostly juniors and seniors for our outside the box. It's shorter microcycles. We utilize FPAS. We incorporate complexes into the program. So strength, speed, or speed, strength. French contrast or American contrast, whatever you want to call it, cluster training, sports specific training, which really just means I'll get guys in positions that are familiar. Maybe instead of using a trap bar in a standard even stance, our offensive linemen are in a split stance for the trap bar because that's where they start, when they're in their football stance. Things like that, I consider football specific. Position specific, not anything else. So all those different variables are incorporated in the training. Front 7, very similar. All the different variables incorporated in that. So athletic on the field work, little different. For us, field work is always based on position, and conditioning is also based on position. So we start with a general block at the beginning of every phase, and the closer we get to football, the more specific we get. Developmental program is very basic. We do, in conditioning, we do incorporate aerobic training for a short period of time because, again, that's the foundation. It's usually as a means of recovery at the end or at the beginning of our off season in January, but it's very brief. Conditioning can be pre or post lift, depending on the type, depending on the day. For example, if we're doing a longer, slower conditioning session, that'll typically be after a training session. If we're doing a shorter, more intense, that could be before, or it could be after. So speed and plyometrics are always done pre-lift. That's just kind of how we roll. SAQ, change of direction. We utilize a lot of different metrics as far as acceleration is concerned. For our resisted accelerations, for example, our wide receivers are anywhere between 15 and 60 yards. Our tight ends are typically 20 to 40, and our offensive line usually don't go over 20 yards for a lot of their sprints, especially resisted sprinting. We don't test 40s. That's kind of gone away with the ability to constantly monitor velocities using Catapult or any GPS you use. So, when we give a sheet of paper to our position coaches with, here's how fast we are, it's miles per hour now. And a wide receiver could have reached any miles per hour on any given day. That miles per hour is their best miles per hour until they beat it again. And we'll basically go from first to last on our team, and that's how we evaluate our team speed. that also allows us to get a number on everybody. So, you know, it's hard, man. A lot of guys, you know, over the years, I learned a lot of guys they're not good on test day. And if you just use one day to test, sometimes that's not always the best for everybody. So we like to test every day. Every day is a test. Every day is up on the board. Everybody sees who's fast and who's not. And everybody can talk as much trash as they want about it because it's important to them. Touched on it a little bit briefly before. Conditioning, the further we are away from football, the longer duration we run. Aerobic to anaerobic, general to specific. And I think it's important for recovery, in particular postseason, sometimes even microdose during the season. You know, that term's trendy right now, the term microdosing, but, you know, everybody listens to Joe Rogan. He's talking about psychedelics. We're talking about speed and strength. But energy systems are they're all touched on throughout the year, very briefly sometimes. So that's the first piece. Now, what I'll do is I'll back out of here and I'll hit this FPAS piece because this is new stuff now. You know, we created this over the course of really my whole career. And what I've seen and what I've developed is because of a couple different things. The need for it is real simple. I've utilized APRE. I've utilized 5-3-1. I've utilized linear periodization. I have old DVDs of Vershansky that are, you know, translated from Russian. I love periodization. I love figuring out the best way to get our athletes big, strong, and powerful, right? And all those different methods of periodization typically come from different areas, right? So they come from track and field, right? The Eastern Bloc is big into track and field. Russia, huge into track and field. The throwers, you know, that's all part of how we learned about periodization. And they did it the best because they took the best notes. And then there's powerlifting and there's Olympic lifting. So powerlifting, we know so many different methods come from powerlifting. And a lot of times it's Eastern Bloc. There's some things in the US that have been done, but not really to the level of what they did. And then you got Olympic weightlifting, all right? All great methods for getting people strong, big, strong, and powerlifting, big, strong, and powerful. And then you also have bodybuilding, right? You have all the new information we know about hypertrophy that's just now coming out. So FPAS takes all that and incorporates it into a training system that's seamless. And it can be confusing for somebody that's not used to thinking outside the box from a standard linear periodization model. For example, like in training, we don't use percentages typically in a lot of our lifts, because what I've found is everybody wants to auto-regulate, right? Everybody wants to maximize that given day for training, right? That's where velocity-based training comes in, and we've woven that into FPAS. But if there's a lot of people that don't have a Tendo or a Gym Aware or whatever, they just have their eyes and they have their experience as a coach. So there's a way to do both. We want to maximize every day. And what's the closest way to identify where somebody's at? Well, if you're in college, typically it's 7 days previous, right? If for us, you know, we squat on Friday, we have Big Squat Friday, right? What's the closest time that I know exactly where that athlete is from a strength perspective? It's 7 days previous. It's not from a max I took 2 months ago, 3 months ago, a year ago, because that's just a guess, right? I want I want actual information. So that's where I pull it from. And you'll kind of see how we do that a little bit briefly as we go through this. So again, some talking pieces I've already spoke on. The nice thing is this method, you can pick any exercise and utilize it. Doesn't matter. You can do it for pull-ups. You can utilize it for a clean if you want. You can utilize it for a back squat, a deadlift. It's very simple and easy to understand, and our athletes understand it because a lot of our athletes don't understand percentages, sets, and reps. The important part of this is that technical mastery is necessary. It has to be there. So when we talk a little bit in a minute, talking about failure and flirting with failure with training, that doesn't necessarily mean true failure. You know, anybody that's a strength coach on here knows you got the guy that makes a rep look beautiful and then immediately fails on the next one, right? Those are the type 2 guys, really explosive guys, but they need to work on kind of power endurance, right? Then you have the athlete that looks absolutely awful on a rep, but he's got 8 more in the tank, right? If you really know who he is. And maybe he's just got a bigger heart, or maybe he's just built a little different, but you have that athlete. And then you have everything in between. So knowing your athletes and knowing when to say when is really important. And you know, for us, the way we organize our training, our athletes that are being spotted are always being spotted by the same individual so that we can make sure that they're safe. There's a relationship there. There's an ebb and a flow and an energy between, you know, the coach and the athlete that we're aware of and cognizant of that helps us allow this to happen. So, so again, what a lot of it comes from is APRE, and what I saw, APRE, fastest way to get strong. Ask Dr. Brian Mann. He wrote the book on it for us. But there's a lot of limitations to APRE, I found. Number one, the reps are only 10, 6, and 3. To me, that's not good enough for what we need. So FPAS uses 15 on down to 1 and everything in between. All the 7s, all the 4s, all the 2s, all the different numbers, all the 11s, doesn't matter. You can utilize it in our system. The second thing we saw with APRE in particular was the warm-up sets. So in APRE, if you're familiar with it, there's 2 warm-up sets. There's a 50% set of your first set weight, and there's a 75% set of your first set weight. So AA, if you're squatting 550 for a triple on a given day, and your warm-up set at 75% of 550 and 50% of 550, and you don't get any other warm-up, you think you can do that?
No, I mean,
no shot.
Yeah, I mean, my age now, I need like several warm-ups, several stepping stones.
And it takes me 15 minutes of PAP, right? And at least 6 to 8 sets of warming up before I get to my working sets. And that's when I'm going heavy-ish. You know, I haven't been heavy in a while. But so we basically combined linear periodization, some of the different methods through powerlifting and Olympic lifting with APRE to allow the volume we want, but also allow the working sets that we want to occur. So that's all part of it. And again, you have to change your whole program kinda to elicit certain responses. So whether it be hypertrophy, power, or strength, or any of the auxiliaries of any one of those adaptations, it's all kind of woven in. So the physiological effect of training to failure, what that does to the body from a hormone perspective, from a technique perspective, from just a biological perspective is huge. And then the physiological effect of that. So I've often found that, and I know most of the strength coaches probably have too, if you let them go down for another one and they're not really tough and you can get them through that somehow, a lot of times they have that in the tank, maybe 1, 2, or 3 more. So again, those are all things that we want to try to maximize, obviously in a safe and effective environment. And then again, training age differences, like we just said, it takes us 8 sets plus a 15-minute warm-up to put a heavy bar on our back. It takes an 18-year-old maybe 3 or 4 sets. So again, it's a minimum effective dose as far as what we need to do to them to get them to get out of them what we need on a given day. So that's all incorporated into it. So again, hypertrophy, I don't need to talk about that, but the biggest thing is technical failure. That's extremely important. We utilize plus sets in order to do that. I want to kind of get into what this kind of looks like for us. For an example. So let's talk through, I'm going to breeze through a couple things. So here's the rules that are in place. Okay, we've created these rules over the course of time. And basically these rules dictate how the plus set works. If you're familiar with APRE, there's a set of rules for 10, there's a set of rules for 6, there's a set of rules for 3. I've changed them quite a bit over the course of my career of fiddling with these things to maximize the different rep ranges. So let's talk through it. These are some different examples of cycles, but these are the asterisk sets. Let me get to something I can. That's power. All right, here we go. Hold on. So let's talk through a strength set. For example, with a back squat, okay? We have some different variables that we can add in, like an asterisk set or a C set. I don't really want to get into that right now because we'll get in the weeds of that. And my book's 300 pages, so you can get in the weeds, hopefully, when that comes out. But let's walk through this 4-week progression and forget about the velocity piece. So on a typical 8-rep set, we want to be conservative, okay? So obviously we know the max for 8 reps is 80%, correct? That's where it would be at. So we want to back off that a little bit because we don't know where the athlete is when we first start. But after the first plus set, we know from there on out. And again, you can play with the warm-up sets. You can add, you can subtract, you can mess with the rep schemes of all of them. So let's say our squat max is 500 pounds, right? So we get a 500-pound max. And we want to take, let's split it, let's split the difference. We'll take 70% of that. All right, so our squat max for 8, we'll say 350, right, for our first plus set. So if you look at right here where's my cursor? Where my cursor is, right in this box right here, okay? That first set for you would be 350, okay? Now, we're going to take 90% of 350. That's 315. So your last warm-up set here where it says 90 would be 315. Then we're going to take 80% of 350. So that'd be 280. Okay. Then we're going to take 70% of 350. That's 245. So your warm-up sets are 245, 280, and 315. Now that's probably not including this, which I always put in, which is a warm-up, which is probably 135, 185, 225, something like that, for whatever reps the athletes want. But there's your warm-ups, okay, for your set of 350. Now, let's say, for argument purposes, you're doing a plus set at 350 and you get 12 reps, all right, on your first plus set. Let's go to FPAS 12, okay? Right here, you see where my cursor is? You just got 12 reps, 10 to 12. excuse me, FPAS 8. Sorry, because that's where we're at. Okay. So you got 12 reps. So you're going up on your second set, 10 pounds. All right. So let's go back down. We'll look at this. So you went 350 for 12. Your second plus set is going to be 360 for as many as you can. Let's say on 360, you get 8, or let's say you get 10. All right. Go back up to the rules. Now keep in mind, you're still doing 8. All right. So you go back up to the rules. You got 10 reps. So the following week, the subsequent week, on your plus set, your first working set is going to be 5 pounds up. So it went from 360 to 370 to 375. You follow the warm-up sets based on that first set weight. Then you're going to the six plus rules. Right here. You follow those rules depending on how your reps went. And away you go on down the line. So at no point in time are we so concerned with, number one, you can get a 1 rep max off anything, right? Within reason. So at any point in time, the flexibility here for me to say, hey, coach, so-and-so squats this, I know right away. Right? I know right away because it's right here in front of me in the moment. Like I know exactly what one of our offensive linemen squats each and every week, and I can tell that right away because we are so close to that with our plus sets. And you can take this on down to 1. Or you can take it up to 15 and everything in between. And we manage a lot of different things with velocity as a kind of addition to this, as well as cluster sets or breaks in between reps as a method for kind of transitioning things from different physiological adaptations. So I hope that doesn't, it's a little bit different than what a lot of people utilize. I've found it's tremendous at getting athletes strong very quickly. And we all know, especially in college in particular, that, our athletes aren't always the same every week. Maybe they didn't sleep. Maybe they didn't eat. Maybe they went out. Maybe they had, too much to drink. Maybe they, the girlfriend broke up with them. They got an issue at home. This allows us to manage training load, auto-regulate training load throughout the course of the year, and allows us to adapt a lot of different physiological adaptations. So I don't really want to get into all this because, you know me, I could talk all damn day. But, if you got any questions, double A, or if you think, how we manage that on a given day, I'd love to answer them. So that's kind of what we're talking about right now. So
yeah, I'm pretty intrigued with a lot of this stuff because I came up in the system with, Tommy Moffitt coached me, and it was straight to the percentages. Like it was 8 at 60, 8 at 65, 8 at 70, 8 at 75. Next week you got different reps, and that's kind of what I've always known. And I know last year at Summer Strong, actually 2 years ago, Jim Carizzi did a nice presentation on theirs, and it immediately caught my eye. And he was getting away from the percentages and showing kind of his story and his format. And I immediately called the guys, like, tell me more, because I know in the presentation you touched on it, but like I want to hear more about this. And it's pretty neat for me to. It would cause me to like totally get out of the comfort zone of percentages, because I know those like the back of my hand. But this stuff it's really intriguing. I know the training, you mentioned the training age a lot, and we always call it sometimes training maturity.
mm-hmm.
And we look at, like you said, we have our maxes for guys, but we know what kind of filter or what to pull off the true max according to their training maturity. And how do we figure that out? We go, okay, this guy's lifestyle pretty much sucks. He came in that day, he got really hyped because the right song was on, his teammates got him hyped, and he hit this massive clean or whatever. And we know deep down, like, he doesn't come in daily with that type of mentality. His training maturity is a 4 out of 10. So we know, hey, we take that guy's 1 rep max that he hit in this ultimate environment, competitive situation, and we know to trickle that thing down a little bit to keep him in a good training zone because he doesn't come in daily. Whereas you have this kid that comes in, he's technically good, he's always on, he takes care of himself, he sleeps well, he's not out all night. We know his training maturity is pretty high. We know we could probably keep what he hit in a max situation, probably his true max, and let him train off of it because day to day he comes in with that same mindset. So we've kind of put ours a little bit more on training maturity.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I've done it all the different way. I mean, I got, I'm just sitting right here. I got this in front of me. I got this in front of me. I mean, these are all things that I've utilized over time. Like, percentages are all, I mean, it's still tried and true, right? It's not, I'm not saying that I don't think it has its place during certain times of year. Because in season, we utilize it probably a little bit more than we utilize FPAS per se, but there's a conversation that goes along with it, just like, you're talking about, and snaps and all those things. But in the off season, and for us, instead of having to, discuss or guess on somebody's, whatever they're what's happening, we just let it play out.
Yeah. We dial in, we call it T to the 3, tell the truth sets.
Yeah.
And we sprinkle those in throughout, spots to just get, again, tell the truth without having to go and max out.
Yeah.
We put on an 85% and let them open it up. And we know, hey, they get in that 5 to 6 range, well, their max is pretty much set. If they get in that 7, 8, 9 rep with 85%, we know, hey, they're probably a little stronger than their max set. That's a good sign. Let's tweak it up a set. Oh, all of a sudden a kid hits 3 or 4 with 85. Oh no, we hate to do this, but we need to turn him down a little bit, and so we play around a lot with that and just throwing stuff like that in the pressing or the front squat or the back squat or things like that, just so we can get a measurement without having, like you said, just to test.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying that any one way to do this thing is the right way or the wrong way. Like, there's hundreds of ways to get what you need done and get it done effectively, right? Every strength coach in the country has their own way of doing things, and what I just wanted to do today was just share a little bit of how we do it. I'm pretty open with how we do things. I'm not secretive. I don't really care who knows. Evident by, maybe our first Pac-12 game, you guys, like, it does, you know what I mean? Like, it's all, to me, it's the little things that we do in our room on a daily basis that allow us to really be great at our jobs. It's, I'm a numbers geek. I love that. But, ultimately it's the buy-in, it's the belief, it's the result, right? It's the confidence that we instill. And however that happens, and that's what gets our guys fired up. Joe Ken told me one time, man, the single best thing you can do for an athlete is give them confidence. If you have confidence, then you're getting a result, regardless of what the squat max says, it's always fun to see that progression through the course of time, right? That's why we do what we do. That's why we love it.
Yeah.
I know that's why I do it.
No doubt. Joe, man, this has been good. It's kind of opened my eyes on some stuff. Again, being the old percentage guy, so it's good to see this stuff. It always keeps my brain spinning. We got our next guest coming in Thursday here. He's coming in right here about 2 miles from here, Redondo Beach. Big Tony Webb coming in, sharing this is his elevator pitch on his talk for Thursday. Tony, it's yours.
Yes, Coach. Coach, on Thursday, we're going to be talking about the teaching and the implementation of the Olympic lifts. And we're going to do this from one of my earliest mentors, Coach Gil Hatch, his style and how he presented it, his teaching methods, and kind of my experience in the past, things I liked, things I didn't like, and how we kind of progressed till this point now.
You feel the content will be nearly or as strong as your beard?
Yes, Coach, I do. Yes, Coach,
Okay.
I do.
All right. Well, that's all we need to know. Tune in, guys, Thursday. We'll crank it up again, same time, same channel, 1 o'clock, and we'll continue this strong content, pushing it out to the masses and keep learning, and guys, and just keep sharing the fellowship. Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks, Big Tony. We'll see you guys Thursday.